the other thing that I see, which kind of comes off of defining the ideal customer profile, ideal buyer persona, is really about how we interact with our prospects and our customers, how companies interact with their prospects and their customers. And what I've seen is, and we all have seen this proliferation of tools that exist now, especially AI automation tools in both customers in sales and in customer success. It is just, I mean, when we started working together, Craig, 20 years ago, it was hard to get contact information for buyers. That in itself was a hard thing to do, and you had to do work to get that. Today, you can get that from a lot of sources for basically free. When we started working together 20 years ago, if we wanted to send emails, I mean, that was the early days of the very early days of Marketo, right? You had introduced me, I think, to Phil and John in those early days, and it was like those early days of Marketo. And you had to actually send the emails, and you had to write the emails and send the emails. Now there's tools to send emails, then LinkedIn messages, then call you, then do this. And then now with you layer AI on top of all of that, and it's writing the emails and saying the things on the call and doing all that for you. And my opinion is that actually we're going to enter yet a new generation, essentially, of customer engagement, prospect engagement, outbounding, that is more human, less automated, more authentic, highly researched, curated. So for me, I'll give you just a couple of examples. Like on the new customer front, one of the things that we did at Better Cloud, and I've been advising a couple of companies, and they've now done so. I've seen that it's worked multiple times. As an example, is actually sending SDRs, real people, with a swag bag, to a prospect's office, physical office, getting past security, up the elevator, and hand delivering that bag with the swag and a handwritten note to that prospect in their office. Not easy to do. You don't want to do this if you don't have a defined ICP and ideal buyer persona, because that's too many people to go after. But the conversion rate is like nearly 100% from when the bag gets delivered to that person taking a meeting. They have to, even if it's just out of respect for how much work you did to get them that bag, they have to do that, right? That to me is an example. Another example, actually, this is interesting on the customer side. This is a little bit different, but on the customer side, something that I've been doing with some companies is you have a customer post something on LinkedIn, a customer you have a relationship with, they post something interesting on LinkedIn, you like it, but not only do you like it, you go into your internal Slack, share the LinkedIn post, and tell your team, hey, this is one of my customers. This is a pretty cool post. Can you guys amplify this? And what you see with a lot of customers, most people's customers, is that they'll post on LinkedIn, they get 20, 30, 50 likes, and then all of a sudden you come in and they've got 150 or 100 or whatever because you really drove that. They recognize that. That builds a relationship with them in a way that, so I'm just trying to give a couple of these examples. I have a long list, but I feel like that is what is needed in today's world to stand out, because there's just, I launched the podcast, I put it on my LinkedIn, and I swear to you, I get pitches right now for cybersecurity products for my podcast company of one person. It's like, would you need to secure your infrastructure? Our product, secures all the I'm like, it's not even a company. And I'm getting pitches for literally CRMs, this, for my one person podcast. Like, that's how automated it is, And so anyway, that's my, that I feel like that's at least in my opinion, that seems like a trend that we're going to see. It doesn't mean that there's no space for automation or the AI tools or anything like that, but I think to stand out with the key prospects, the account-based marketing, the account-based everything, that's what I think it's going to take.
Matt?
I love that.
Yes, I got one.
No,
before you go, I'll just add this to you, then I'm going to hand you the mic. You're not allowed to say you love this, though, because this, honestly, I need one at some point. So on as you're saying, so this kid wrote me on LinkedIn, said, love the podcast. By the way, he has like call it a SMB-ish, not like parakeet shops, but like tech companies type of target market. And they've been doing hand delivered, uh, uh, it's not direct mail, right? It's like swag gifts, whatever. 50% conversion rate to close. No SDRs. That's obscene.
Yeah.
I believe that. I believe that number.
I mean, he comes from a real brand. Anyway, okay, Matt, to you. No saying I love this, except for what I just said.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I love what you just said.
God damn it.
No, I remember in 2015, which was the last time I really closely managed an SDR team, stressing to them, hey, we have to impress upon our prospects as much as humanly possible that we are a person who's trying to get a hold of them and that they're not in some kind of automated sequence or marketing automation, drip campaign, or whatever. You have to demonstrate to people that you're a real person. And back in those days, there wasn't as much LinkedIn automation. So a lot of that came from just, getting into their LinkedIn, following them, making comments on their posts and whatnot. But the real flex back in those days from my BDR team was like, look how personalized this message is. Or I sent this person, I know that they're a huge fan of the University of Michigan, and I sent them a University of Michigan tiny helmet with a handwritten note. And that was the flex. And that's how we got meetings. Today, the flex is, hey, I hacked my way through Outreach or SalesLoft or, Apollo and some LinkedIn tool, and I was able to send 15,000 emails today. And I'm just like, oh shit. And the conversion, we used to be like, oh man, conversion rate on this stuff is so bad, it's 1%. Now it's like 0.01%, right? And it always reminds me of a conversation that I used to have with the founders separately, but both the founders of Outreach and SalesLoft, which was, it's not just about, hey, I sent a lot of emails today and I was able to get a 1% conversion rate. Actually, the amount of people that you turn off with your bad emails is so high. And like the one thing that I think about often is, they talk about this like when marriages fall apart, it's not that you're acrimonious, it's that you're apathetic. Right. And so when people are just like, if I see something come from this brand, I just don't even give a shit. That's when you know that you're dead. And sending these mass emails and sending these mass LinkedIns to the point where you're just like, oh, I see this person pop up. I'm not even going to click it to unsubscribe. That's how little I care about it. That is the state that we're getting into. So we have to have some sort of return to, hey, let's make this as human as possible. Let's show personalization. Let's show that we did research. And I think in today's day and age, the only thing that you really can do is what you described, David, which is you physically have to go there because almost everything is built to resemble a human being's behavior. And it's so hard to demonstrate that you're not a robot, you're not AI, and they're not in some automated sequence.
Mm-hmm. The best outreach I've ever had personally to me, someone found an article. I was interviewed in the corner office of the New York Times, and someone found the article, the physical paper, cut out the article, framed it, wrote a handwritten note about why they liked what I said, and then sent it to me. And so it arrived in the office. I had to take the meeting. I mean,
Yeah,
you can't not take that meeting. That to me is, I was talking to one of my former heads of sales, and he said to me what he would do is he would take golf cards, like instead of basketball cards or basic golf cards who no one collects, and he would take a random golfer and send the card with a handwritten note as to why the person he's sending it to reminds him of that golfer. He doesn't know the prospect. And he would send it to them. He's like, it's just something that clearly someone had to sit there, do this, get the card, put it in the thing. And the conversion rates, to your point before, Craig, on these things are all high. Every one of these kinds of initiatives, they're significantly higher, than anything you can do in an automated fashion. They take a lot more work. But I also think, Matt, to your point, I think it also like starts the relationship off on the right level, because it's like the reason I'm responding is because you really cared about who I was. You did research. However you found this information, I appreciate that. That's going to start the entire sales process versus like, please talk to me. Please, no, don't hang up. Please, that's a very different way to start a relationship with the customer.
I totally agree. And you cannot be deterred if you get that meeting, the person says yes, and then they say, hey, it's not the right time. Because the impression that your brand and that you as a person just made on that person means that the second it is, they will literally pick up their phone and call you. They will literally pick up their phone and call you.
So, but I will go back to something, and then I want to make sure that as we talk about David's point, we expand the purview. So, one is you got to know you have to be locked in on your ICP and your ideal buyer personas in order to do this. I know you've said this, but this is really important, right? Because all the things you guys are talking about, the research in the context of knowing what these people are going through, these are the things that make you superpowered. And by the way, even if you use AI, so to get your first draft together or whatever, your knowledge of the person, the market, the type of company would allow you to put the proper edits in to make it interesting. But let's move from that to what you brought, like prospect events. When we think about like extreme value, you know, we talked. I remember Matt when we had Megan Eisenberg on. She's like the greatest demand.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And she's like live events, dinners, live events, setting up meetings at shows, and like, and so I just want to take that further, which is like, even for me, you know, I'm trying to do a CRO event. I got, you know, Ryan Azus from Zoom is working with me, and he's like, dude, with CROs, you got to do something like so spectacular that they can't say no. And like, and then you'll get them here, and it's like the same, you know, it is, you know, because we understand the persona, we know that they're busy, they're going to cancel on you to go take a sales call, whatever. It's like, what's that thing that they can't say no to? And I think, you know, if you know your ideal customer profile, you can go big or go home. Like he was telling me, the one thing he went to was like, the Giants will allow you to have batting practice, right? It's an event. It's like, you invite them to a box. I mean, we all, like in this, we get box invites every month. Yeah. But you invite them to batting practice on the field. He's like, couldn't say no to that. And he's like, I went there, and by the way, we were in line trying to get up there to hit. And so, but those 55 folks that they got to that event all are, you know, not, you know, that is a way to get to these guys that stands out above the rest, that there's no possible way you could have emailed your way into them. Right. And I know that you've talked, you know, I don't know, your guys' reaction as we think about things like, how do we, you know, we need to, this is a joint marketing SDR sales effort. It's about the personalized plays. It's about unique plays to get above the just insane amount of communications that we get.
Well, I think what you just said, Craig, sorry to interrupt, Matt, but I think what you just said, Craig, is if you know your ideal buyer persona and you know the ICP and you have all the data that we talked about in terms of retention rates and growth and sales cycle, you can really put, for most SaaS products, you can put quite a bit of capital behind acquiring a new customer. Not if you're going to blast everyone, but if you know this is the exact customer that's going to have 140% net retention, close in 60 days, you know, be at 80K ASP, that type of customer, you can put a lot of money behind getting that customer and curating the kind of event you're talking about, right? And that's why one of the things that I said, you know, when we were talking before is like, I worked with a company, we literally found the top restaurant in the country and said, we're going to host an event at the top restaurant in the country. And you would think that's going to be crazy expensive. But in reality, they have a private room where they host these events. It's a separate kitchen. And, you know, you pay $500 per person, all in, food, drink, tag tip. $500 is actually not that crazy, but you can't get a reservation at that restaurant ever. So now you're going to get invited. Who turns down? It's the same as the batting practice. No one turns down that reservation. That invite. And I think that that's the opportunity. You just, but it takes, back to the point of thoughtfulness, back to what Matt was saying about the persona. Like, you have to understand your persona and what do they like to do and what's going to get them interested, what's going to get them excited. We did something at Better Cloud where at one of the big conferences that we went to, you know, we actually got a suite, the largest suite at the hotel that we were staying at. We got the smallest booth, but the largest suite. In reality, it's actually much cheaper. And what we did is we made little cards for special invites, and essentially we had 8 of them. And when people came to the booth and we knew that they were one of the target customers, we gave them this special invite that was only for 8 people to come to the suite. And we had a bar and we had a whiskey tasting of the best whiskey you can buy. Again, when you put it all together, it's actually cheaper than the bigger booth with thousands of people that are not really your target market. But I think it's being creative, and you need to have the right DNA in marketing and in sales, because to your point, if they don't work together on this, if marketing does it, no one's going to they can come up with the coolest idea. No one will show up. And if sales does it, they probably won't come up with the best idea or execute it the best way, and so you kind of need them to work together. So I think that's what stands out, in the market. It's back to this, it's creativity, it's differentiation, it's really hyper targeted. And by the way, I think all the people who went there and did the batting practice, they're also with a bunch of other people that they want to be around and that they can learn from.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing.
I get that. The community thing that you guys are talking to is like, man, that's so important. And as Matt said, that, the community develops organically, but we put them in position to go do that, And so like, and just going back to the company that targets accounting, that I was talking about earlier, their Series B, they get 300 people to their events because they know their persona, they know what they want to talk about, and they know that they're craving for community. I mean, these elements, it's invaluable, right? It's just, as you guys keep going back to community, I don't want to lose that,
Yeah.
Sure we bottle that from this conversation.